50 years ago today, North Vietnamese tanks rolled into Saigon. Americans fled the city in helicopters. This was the end of the Vietnam War, or the American War as they call it here. 50 years later, I'm an American living in Da Nang. Yesterday I was sat at a table with 10 Vietnamese uncles, drinking beer and singing karaoke all day. Man, history is crazy. So how do Vietnamese feel about Americans today? I've been living here for 6 years. I call Vietnam my home, but could I ever really fit in here? April 30th is one of the biggest holidays in Vietnam. They call it Reunification Day, the day that northern and southern Vietnam became one again after the end of the war. There's festivals and celebrations all over the country, everyone's partying. There's a massive parade happening in Ho Chi Minh City. They've been preparing for it for weeks. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit hungover trying to make this video today. Yesterday, my neighbors threw a party, I was drinking with the uncles all day, and we talked about the holiday a little bit. To be honest, it's the only time of the year when it really comes up. One thing that stood out is one of the uncles told me, 50 years ago, we would have been enemies, but today, you're my neighbor, you're my brother, we can share meals together. The point is, everyone in my neighborhood treats me like family. I don't feel like an outsider at all. Anywhere I've ever been in Vietnam, I've never felt unwelcome or uncomfortable as an American. To understand Vietnam's attitude, you gotta zoom out a bit. There was 1,000 years of fighting off Chinese and Mongolian invasions, 100 years of brutal French colonialization, and then 10 years fighting against the Americans. I don't want to minimize what happened here during that time. It was hell for both countries. We all know that. But for the Vietnamese, it was the final chapter in a long history of fighting against foreign invaders. In 1975, now they're free and independent for good. The Vietnamese are resilient people. They choose to look forward to the future rather than dwell on the past. The Vietnamese know that governments start war, not people. They know that most Americans didn't want to be here fighting. They were doing what the government told them, so they don't hold it against us. Nowadays, the country is in a great spot. It's rapidly developing. The economy is growing. They welcome anyone around the world. They just want to show off their awesome country. If you ask most Vietnamese people what they think about America, the war is not the first thing that comes to mind. They'll tell you about music and movies, culture, that kind of thing. Vietnam has a very young population, so if you're under 55, 60 years old, you don't remember anything about the war. The sad thing is that from the American perspective, if you ask people what they think about Vietnam, the war is the first thing that comes to mind. All people know is that it's a place that we should have never been, that we destroyed. A lot of people still think it's probably a third world developing country, a bunch of poor people that live in the jungle. And that's really what this channel is about. I like to share my experience as an American living in Vietnam, try to show off how awesome this place is to the world. It's some of the nicest people you can imagine. It's the tightest community of people I've ever been around. So if you want to learn more about Vietnam, subscribe to the channel. I've got plenty to share. It's funny, I talked about it with my Vietnamese girlfriend today. It's honestly not a topic that has really ever come up. How she feels about America, what did she learn about America growing up? So she had some interesting things to say. How do they teach you about the Vietnam War? Like, what did you learn about growing up, and how did it make you feel about America?
When I was in school, I hated history, but when I'm growing up a little bit and I learned it from like outside of the book, it's just way more interesting. And talk to my grandpa, it's just way more interesting because in school the teacher teaches like very boring way, and they also taught us like softer version of the world.
I've talked to a lot of Vietnamese people about this, and they say they don't really talk about the fighting that happened, all the bombings and killing. They mostly talk about the resilience of the people, how strong they were to be able to survive the war, and then everything that came after. Vietnam is very positive, always looks forward to the future. Vietnamese, even the language, it's never negative. So you would never say like, this drink is bad. You would say, this drink is not very delicious.
Yeah, hold on.
Come on. You would
Yeah.
never say it's terrible. You would never say food is gross. You'd say, it's not very great.
Yeah.
Right? But it's just one point about how Vietnamese are very positive.
Of course, like we did learn about like the war and Americans and French people and Japanese people came to our country, and try to cut it apart and something like that and kill people. But we don't have the hatred.
Hatred?
Yeah, hatred like towards you guys too much. And my teacher taught us, like you said, like so softer version of the word. So we only focus on like we were so strong. So we did learn that you guys kill people, like like we kill each other. But I didn't have any bad thought about Americans or America in general when I was a kid.
So you said you talked to your grandpa about it. So this is very interesting. I met her grandpa on Tet Holiday a couple years ago. It was his 100th birthday. When he first met me, he told me that he had fought in the war against the French and against the Americans. He told me that he had to kill people in war, but he didn't like it. He had to protect his country. And what else did he talk about?
I asked him like, what was it like? And he said, well, I had to train a lot, and I have to train to get ready. And I said, ready for what? Ready to kill people, and that's the worst part. And I said, like, do you have to like kill right away? And he said, like, no, we always have the part, the step. Like first, we will talk, like, hey, you have to like gun down, and if they keep trying to kill us, then and he will be like, if you kill us, then we will fight back. And that's the second step, I guess. Like the third step, like you have to fight. And he said that we would try to like shoot on the legs or something, like don't kill them, and then try to get all the guns and try to turn them into like try to talk to them and try to change their mindset. And I was like, wow, that's great. Like you didn't kill them.
So he gave me a big hug when he saw me. He asked, about the city that I grew up. He asked what my parents do for work and do I have brothers and sisters. He wanted to know all about my family. And he still asks about me sometimes, right? You guys talk?
Yeah,
Says, how is Luan's American boyfriend doing?
yeah. He asked about you a lot. So because like you can talk with him in Vietnamese a little bit, and so he's like so impressed about that, and he feels like grateful. He told me that like at least like he put effort on get to know the language and everything and the culture and stuff. That's great about you.
Vietnam hasn't forgotten about the war. They're reminded about it on this day every year. So if you're worried about how you'll be treated as an American if you show up to Vietnam, you shouldn't. They're going to welcome you the same way they welcome me. So don't be scared to check out Vietnam. It's one of the greatest places on earth. For now, thanks for watching the video. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.